right now. Let's go to Chris Kirschner. Chris, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Very busy day for you today as we cover the world of recruiting for the University of Alabama.
Yeah, it definitely was. I thought I was going to have a nice day enjoying the first day of the Masters, but turns out that really didn't happen.
Well, let's spend a little time. Update us on the latest. Give us the couple of recruits. We've talked about them from a couple of different standpoints, but talk about we can start with Paul Tyson if you'd like, and we can work our way there across back to your state.
Yeah, Paul Tyson, four-star quarterback from Hewitt-Trussville, decided to end his recruitment on Thursday. It's not really that big of a surprise. I think everybody pretty much expected Tyson to end up committing to Alabama. It was just a matter of when. With all of his family's history, I'm sure you guys have talked about it today. He is the great-grandson of Bear Bryant. Pretty much the entirety of his family has gone to the University of Alabama, so it was pretty much a matter of when he wanted to make his decision, and he decided that Thursday was the day to do it, and here we are. Alabama has one of its quarterback commitments in the 2019 class.
Let me ask you, when you look at Paul Tyson, break him down from his skill set, what he'll bring as far as at a quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the current roster and compare Tyson to guys like Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, they're very different quarterbacks. Hurts and Tagovailoa are dual threat prospects, meaning that they can definitely make plays with their legs. They can pick up yardage with their legs. With Tyson, that's not really the case. He's not a mobile threat. He's strictly a pro-style quarterback. That's not to say that Tyson is glued in the pocket. I mean, he can definitely extend plays with his legs, but he's not going to be someone like Jalen Hurts who's rushing for over 100 yards in a game. It's just not going to happen with Tyson. The thing I can say with Tyson as far as his game goes, I mean, he had a really excellent junior season at Hewitt-Trussville. He almost passed for 3,500 yards, threw for 36 touchdowns, to only 4 interceptions. So, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's very accurate with the football and protects the football, which is something that Nick Saban really wants out of his quarterback. As far as his mechanics go, he's definitely improved in that regard. For a guy who's 6'4", sometimes those guys have long deliveries. He's definitely improved on that. Short, compact delivery, gets the ball out of his hands quickly. As far as things he needs to improve on, I mean, a lot of these high school quarterbacks aren't 100% polished. He definitely needs to work on reading coverages better, making the correct reads. So, I mean, it's just minor things with Tyson. I do think that this is definitely a gifted quarterback, and it's not something that Alabama just took his commitment because he's related to Bear Bryant. I guarantee you, if Nick Saban didn't think Tyson was good enough to play quarterback at Alabama, he would have looked elsewhere. So that tells you a lot about Tyson's game.
Would it be reading too much into it when you look at Paul Tyson and Taulia Tagovailoa, guys that they're heavily recruiting, and I'm sure there's others out there, but are we starting to kind of pick up on what they would like to be offensively? I mean, is there any hints here that we're reading too much into it, or maybe I'm just trying to overanalyze it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really any hints as far as what the offense is going to be. I mean, yes, Tyson and Taulia are pro-style quarterbacks, but, I mean, from my standpoint and from all I've heard, I think Tua Tagovailoa is going to be the starting quarterback. And like I said, he's a dual threat prospect. So I don't really know if these guys give any hints as far as what the offense is going to be. I mean, I know from Dan Eno's quarterbacks coach, he definitely wants guys who can make all the reads and all that stuff and go through his progressions, which is something that Alabama has struggled with over these past few seasons. So in that regard, pro-style quarterbacks tend to, have a more, I guess, awareness of, reading the coverages, going through your progressions and all that stuff. So, but as far as Taulia and Paul Tyson giving off hints as what the offense is going to be, I don't know if we can say that just yet. We should probably wait until the spring game to see what the offense actually looks like in a game setting.
Chris, does this change Taulia Tagovailoa to his younger brother's plans? I mean, does this rush it up, or do you think he's still going to have the same approach as we talked about a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, well, I'll be putting out an article on SECcountry.com at 8 p.m. I already spoke with Taulia's father, Nalu, about Paul Tyson's commitment and how it affects Taulia. I'll just give a little short snippet of that article that's coming out in less than 2 hours. It's really not going to affect Taulia in Alabama. I mean, they knew the plan was to take 2 quarterbacks all along, so nothing really changes with that.
All right, so now let's work our way to the other side of the conversation. Alabama adding a defensive prospect. Tell us more.
Yeah, Alabama also picked up a commitment from 4-star defensive lineman Rashad Chaney out of Georgia in the Atlanta metro area. He attends Cedar Grove High School. And for Alabama fans, that's definitely a high school to know because the first game of the high school football season is going to be Cedar Grove versus Hewitt-Trussville in Hoover. So it's going to be Rashad Chaney going up against Paul Tyson and Pierce Quick. So it's definitely a game if you're in the Hoover area on August 25th to check out because there are 3 Alabama commitments going to be playing in that game. I'm sure I'll be at that game to start the high school football season. But Chaney has been one of Alabama's top defensive line targets for quite some time. He was originally committed to Georgia. Georgia decided to stop recruiting him. Not really sure why at this point. I know that Georgia has a list of defensive line targets that it wants and has prioritized, and they pretty much gave Chaney no other option but to decommit. And that's really to Alabama's benefit because, like I said, he has been one of the top defensive line targets, even with Georgia not wanting him in their class. So one of the fastest defensive linemen that I've seen in this 2019 class, very quick. He's 6'2", 270, likely going to play around 285 when he gets to Alabama. But with Alabama needing several defensive line targets in this class, definitely a good way to start the 2019 class, getting one of the best defensive linemen in the country.
Chris, let me ask you, you think defensive line, you mentioned that as far as a priority. What else will be a priority in this class of upcoming the 2019? And I say 2019, and some of it will be 2018 as far as in December. But when you look at this class, what do you think will be the main priority other than defensive line?
Yeah, defensive line definitely a big priority for Alabama. Only signed 2 in the 2018 class, Christian Barmore and Stephon Wynn. Wynn is already in Tuscaloosa practicing with the team, and Barmore gets there this summer. So outside of defensive line, inside linebacker, definitely a priority for Alabama. Alabama signed 1 in the 2018 class in Jalen Moody, but it was pretty clear that Moody was a last resort kind of guy. They offered Moody just a few days prior to National Signing Day after it was clear that guys like Quay Walker, J.J. Peterson, Vernon Jackson were not going to sign with Alabama. So inside linebacker, definitely one of the top priorities for Alabama in this class. As far as other positions, quarterback, absolutely. Didn't sign one in the 2018 class. They got one today in Paul Tyson, and we'll see what happens with Taulia Tagovailoa. So I would say quarterback, inside linebacker, and all of the defensive line is the priorities in this class.
Let me ask you from a recruiting perspective, the way that you cover this. We're talking to Chris Kirschner from SECcountry.com. Let me go to Bama Cuts and this episode with Julio Jones and Eddie Jackson and Ryan Anderson and Nick Saban. How does this help Alabama in recruiting and sort of selling inside behind the wall of the football building?
Yeah, I wrote a story about this, I think, last Friday. It's definitely entertainment for the fans, but Alabama is certainly just doing this for recruiting purposes. This is nothing other than a fancy recruiting show for Alabama. That's all it really is when you break it down. When you have guys like Julio Jones, Eddie Jackson, Ryan Anderson, guys who are in the NFL and know what it takes to get there, and you have them sitting in a fancy place in Alabama's facility talking about how Alabama's practices are so much harder than the NFL. I think it was Eddie Jackson who made a comment that Some guys complain about practicing in the NFL when he's like, this is really nothing. You should see a practice at Alabama. I mean, those comments resonate with recruits because, again, those guys are playing in the NFL. They're at the highest level. They've already made an impact for their teams, and they're saying that Alabama practices are harder than what they get paid millions of dollars to do. So it's only helping Alabama on the recruiting trail. I guarantee you that once those episodes release, all of Alabama's top targets are getting that in their Twitter direct messages. They're getting texted that. I'm sure they're talking about it with the recruits. So it's definitely something that Alabama should be praised for, because I haven't seen any other college do something like this where they have a bunch of former players who are now in the NFL sit around and talk about how great their school was. So definitely props to Alabama's marketing team for this.
Let me ask you to go back to, and I'm going to have to depend on you for the name pronunciation. I depended on you this time last year for Tua Tagovailoa to say the last name correctly. And believe it or not, I still use what you sent me quite frequently to other broadcasters because they'll say, how do you say this? And I'm like, hey, the guy gave it to me, man. He knows because he spoke with a family. But going here to Tua Tagovailoa is the former teammate of Tua Tagovailoa. I don't even know how to even start with this last name, but he's a 5-star. I can read that part about it.
Yes, it's Fa'atui Tuitele.
Glory.
It's a mouthful.
Chris, can you send me that on a text message where I can read that? I mean, can you give me the breakdown?
I can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Definitely, in my opinion, it's a little harder than Tua Tagovailoa.
It is.
Yes. Fa'atui Tuitele, definitely a priority for Alabama in the 2019 class. Just picked up a scholarship offer yesterday. And, from talking to people close to the Alabama program and talking to Tuitele over these past few weeks, it was pretty clear that he was going to get that scholarship offer. It was just a matter of him getting to campus, because a lot of the times these West Coast kids, especially from the state of Hawaii, they talk a big game about, I'm interested in East Coast schools, but they never visit. So for Tuitele and his family to actually visit Alabama definitely shows considerable interest in the program. Tuitele and Tagovailoa are actually cousins, and his family had dinner with the Tagovailoa family on Tuesday night. So definitely helps Alabama's case with Tuitele, with Tagovailoa there, and possibly Taulia joining Alabama's 2019 class as well. I mean, they're cousins. Tuitele and Tagovailoa, Tua that is, were former teammates at St. Louis out in Honolulu. So there's a lot of familiarity there. Having family an hour away with Tua and Taulia's parents being in Alabaster definitely helps Fa'atui get comfortable in Tuscaloosa, if that's where he chooses to play his college football. So we'll see what happens. But I definitely think that Alabama has a very good chance at signing him.
The Polynesian connection, right? The Polynesian pipeline, I guess, is what we're calling it now. Polynesian pipeline from Alabama out to the Big Island.
Yeah, I mean, Tua Tagovailoa. You have Cameron Latou, who's from Utah, who's Polynesian. Tavita Musika, junior college guy who Alabama just signed last week. He's also Polynesian. And then you possibly have Taulia and Fa'atui. So it definitely helps when you get that first Polynesian in the program. It definitely opens up eyes to other Polynesian kids, because a lot of those guys stick together. So definitely helps Alabama having that little pipeline going.
Yeah, we were talking to June Jones last week, and one of the things he said the whole entire island was standing still the national championship, pulling for, obviously, Alabama. So we have an Alabama fan base out on the Big Island. So,
yeah, I definitely believe it. I mean, when I was out there for a week in Hawaii when Tua was a recruit, Tua and his family and Taulia, they're all loved out there. They definitely have so many fans. So I can only imagine what it was like to see Tua get in in the second half of the national championship and do what he did. I'm sure that island was electric that night.
So now, have you already got the budget submitted to our company? That another trip in the plan? I mean, surely you got to go out there, right? I mean, there's got to be an excuse to go out to the island and do some recruiting stories.
I guarantee that I'm definitely going to try. I mean, he is a 5-star defensive lineman, so hopefully, there's some extra money floating around for another trip out there.